I'm not gonna lie, the scammer was scammed. Alright, hey guys, it's Jocelyn. Welcome back to my channel, Jocelyn Reads. And today I am filming my seasonal book haul. And if you're new to my channel, I do a book haul that includes all the books from a season. So the last book haul I did included summer, so this one should be my fall book haul. So these are all the books that I bought within the months of September, October, and November. And I haven't bought anything in December, so there's nothing there for that either. So the first book that I have is called Well Met, and it's by Jen DeLuca, and I actually have already read this one. This one is a new adult or adult romance, and it's about this girl named Emily and this guy named Simon. And Emily is an aunt, and she had to move in with her sister and her sister's daughter, so her niece, in order to help take care of her sister because her sister got into a car accident which left her with an injured leg. And while she's getting to know her niece, she ends up being asked to be a part of this Renaissance fair with her niece, because in order to participate she needs someone to participate with her, an adult. And so she decides to join, and when she joins she meets the director, which is this guy named Simon. He's an English teacher and he's super grumpy, and right off the bat, from the first minute that they meet, he just gives her vibes like he doesn't like her, and he's very serious and she's a very goofy girl, and so they don't necessarily get along and they're always clashing. And it's so good. I love the kind of grumpy ex-sunshine trope. Like, Emily is not like a ball of sunshine, but she is very goofy. She always likes to make jokes, and Simon doesn't reply to her jokes, and that does give me a lot of secondhand embarrassment, because when you read a book and someone makes a joke and the main guy doesn't laugh, like, I literally just cringe. But in this sense, it was really funny. The next one I also have already read, so you know, I'm just on my reader girly shit, doing what I need to do. So the book that I have is How the King of LIBROFM Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black, and this is one of my most anticipated reads this year, so I'm super glad that it came out and I got it. And I got the black Barnes & Noble edition, which is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if it'll focus because of how white it is in my ring light, but it is stunning. And look at these papers, these end papers. Absolutely gorgeous in my opinion. So this book is a novella in the Folk of the Air series, obviously, and it's a story all about Cardan, which I absolutely love, because I feel like the one thing that we were really missing in the Folk of the Air series was Cardan's point of view. Obviously our view of Cardan was a little bit jaded in the beginning because we looked at Cardan how Jude looked at Cardan, but if you go along with the books you realize that Cardan is kind of a soft boy. So I wanted to see like what he was thinking about Jude and just what was going on in his mind throughout the series. So when Holly Black said she was coming out with this, I was just so excited, because there's nothing that I want more than to be inside Cardan's mind, and that's exactly what you get here. And though this is an anthology that kind of tells about his childhood and who he is and the time we meet Jude, and even a little bit after the Queen of Nothing, it kind of flows. All the stories flow even though they're separate stories, which I really like. So this was just a really good book in order to get to know Cardan as a character. I don't know why I'm saying this like it's a wrap up, but yeah, that's what this book is about. The next book that I have has a very, very interesting story. I'm not gonna lie, the scammer was scammed. It's sad, but I'm gonna tell y'all. So basically, I got the German edition of Crescent City by Sarah J Maas. If you know me, you know I love Sarah J Maas. I'm a Sarah J Maas stan. This is not news to anyone, but I do not read German, and I don't usually buy books that are in another language for that reason. Like, there's just no purpose. But I want to treat myself. I love Sarah J Maas. This version is supposed to have these stunning sprayed edges, which is basically this on the side, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna spend a cute little coin, not even that much really, but I'm gonna spend like $20 and buy this German edition, because I do love the book and I think it'll look really good on my shelf. And I'm just gonna do this one thing. I'm gonna make a sacrifice and buy a book that I cannot read for the sprayed edges. Do y'all see them? Because I don't, and they're not there. So I emailed the UK Amazon and I was like, hey, this doesn't have sprayed edges, and they basically were like, oh, you have to return it, all this stuff. And I was just like, you know what, I'll just keep it, because I do think that the spine is pretty. I love this cream color. But that's basically my last time trying to splurge and be a cute little booktube girly that buys different editions, especially ones that I can't read, because I was just humbled when I got this one. So I'm gonna stick to buying books in English from now on, or maybe some beginner Spanish, because I can actually speak that. But this is a fail, a flop, if you will. Okay, so the next book I have was actually sent to me by Penguin Teen, and it is A Sky Beyond the Storm. And this series is one of my favorite series in YA fantasy, and just in general, it really got me into the genre because it's very unique and it's not the same story that we get back to back to back. So this is the 4th book in the series and it is the finale, so I'm super scared because if you know Sabatier, you know she is not kind to her characters. She puts her characters through the ringer and her readers too because of it. And so because this is the finale, I know that these characters are going to go through hell and back, and I'm just not ready for it. Like, I'm really not. But if you didn't know, An Ember in the Ashes is a series about a girl named Laya and a guy named Elias, and they live in a society that's kind of like a caste system, and at the bottom of the caste system are scholars and at the top are marshals. And so Elias is living in the martial empire, so he's at the top caste and he's in a school kind of training to be one of just the top people in society. And Laya is a scholar, and the book starts off with her brother being taken away because he is thought to be in this rebel group, and from there she encounters the rebel group in order to help get her brother out. And in doing that, she somehow ends up being a spy for them, and she ends up working for Elias's mom, who is the head of the school, to say the least. So that's a little bit confusing, but it is really, really good. I love the fact that we get Elias, who is this character who doesn't like killing. I feel like in YA books we get a lot of teenagers. Elias is like 20, but we get a lot of teenagers and young people doing a lot of killing, and then there's not a lot of reflecting on how that affects them. With Elias as a character, we get a lot of reflection on how killing makes him feel, and I love his relationship with Laya, and I'm scared for the ending. But the next book I got, oh my gosh, I've read almost all the ones I've talked about so far. I'm literally so proud of myself. But the one that I have now is Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I've talked about this in a wrap up. I really think it is a beautiful cover. I don't think there's anything, yeah, there's nothing underneath the dust jacket, but this, it's just beautiful. But this book follows a girl named Elle and a guy named Orion, and it's kind of like a Harry Potter fan fiction. Like, it reminds me of Harry Potter a lot, but in a more dark academia setting. So Elle and Orion live in this magical school called the Schoolomans, and in the Schoolomans it is just full of monsters. So monsters are always coming out in every nook and cranny in the school. Like, anytime you're walking out your room, you're on your guard because you're scared that a monster is going to kill you. So not only are they in this school to learn how to master magic, which is another part of this world, they all have different types of magic, but not only are they living there to do that, but they're also trying to survive. This is another Grumpy Ex Sunshine trope where Elle has this reputation that she is not well liked in the school. She just doesn't have a lot of friends because of who she is. She just kind of has this really dark cloud around her because her magic is something that's very dark, and that's nothing that she can really help. And Orion is just the well-beloved kid of the school. Like, he's a hero. He's always saving everybody. He's good at killing the monsters. He saved Elle like 7 times, and she absolutely hates it every time she saves her. And so they end up having this relationship in terms of trying to save the school together, and so they're forced into an interaction there because the monsters are getting more and more deadly in the school, and there's just starting to be a lot more than there is supposed to be there, and so it's becoming more of a struggle to survive. So together, Elle and Orion have to work together in order to tame that. There's a lot of controversy surrounding this book, so I definitely would look up Own Voices reviews from Indian reviewers as well as African American reviewers, but I think that the controversy on this topic should definitely be read in context of the book. So if you are curious and you are interested in this book, I definitely would read it in context and look at those issues that people have in the context of this book. And that's all I'm going to really say about that. So the next book I actually have read as well. I don't want this to be a wrap up, but I think I've done good on reading the books that I've bought. But this book is called The Inheritance Games, and it's by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a YA kind of thriller, and it's pitched as Knives Out meets Cinderella. So this book follows a girl named Avery, and one day she's called into the principal's office, and there's this strange guy standing there, and he basically tells her that she has inherited this deceased wealthy old man's fortune. Like, he died and left almost everything to her, and in order to get it, she has to go live in this mansion with his family, who was basically disowned, not given a lot of money, and she has to go live with them for a little bit in order to finally get her cash prize. And so this book is all about us trying to figure out why this old man left all this money to her, because she literally has no connection to him. She can't figure out how he even knows her, but she wants to know why he left this money to her, as well as her surviving with this like batshit crazy family. Because I mean, I kind of understand them, because if I had an old grandpa and he didn't leave me some money, but he left this random stranger some money, I would have issues too. So I understand them, but she also is having trouble living with them because they're angry. So it's all about her and his grandchildren, specifically his grandsons, working together to solve this mystery and these clues that he left behind. It was something new because I read a lot of fantasy, and so this was something new to just break that up. Okay, so the next book that I have is called The Sword of Qui-Gon, and it's by M.L. Wang. I don't know much about this book other than that it is an adult war fantasy, and the back of the book pitches it as the Poppy War meets Avatar: The Last Airbender. So there's some elemental magic that's going on here, and there's like stuff about fighters, and apparently the kingdom that they work for, the empire that this guy is training to be a warrior for, is built off of lies, which, surprise surprise, that's always happened in a fantasy book. That would be the more surprising plot twist, is the fact that people in power are telling the truth. So I'm not surprised by that. That's really all I know about this book, but it gets a lot of hype on the adult fantasy side of booktube. So the next book that I have is Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett, and this is a book that has made its rounds around adult fantasy booktube as well. I haven't heard that many great reviews, but it's something that I really want to read because the magic system sounds really cool. It's about this girl named Sansia who is a thief, and she goes on heists, and on one heist she steals this artifact that is basically essential to the magic system that this book revolves around. And the magic system is something called scribing, which is basically coding, and in this coding you are able to give objects sentience, so like consciousness and stuff like that, which I've never read anything like that in a fantasy book, so I'm super interested, and I love books that have heists. And so after she steals this artifact, a lot of people are after her because of how important and how powerful it can be in the society that they live in. So the next book I have is also adult fantasy, and it's the second book in the series, and it's called The Broken Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. And N.K. Jemisin has quickly become one of my favorite authors of all time. I discovered her this year, and I just have eaten up every single book that I've read by her. The Broken Earth trilogy, which I have right here, is one of my favorite series that I've read this year. I binged that series and just ate it up because her worlds are so unique, and she just has a way of writing that is whimsical but also kind of straightforward. So it's kind of a mix between, I don't want to say two authors, but it does give me a little bit of Laini Taylor vibes. And if you know me, I love any book that reminds me of Strange the Dreamer, and N.K. Jemisin kind of gives me those vibes with her writing, especially in this series. And this is the Inheritance trilogy. So the first book is called The 100,000 Kingdoms, and sadly, yes, I do have two different copies, but The 100,000 Kingdoms, because I can't describe this one because it's the second book in a series. The 100,000 Kingdoms follows this world in which this girl named Yenny, her mother has just died, and so she has to go live with her grandfather's empire up in the sky. And she doesn't know much about her grandfather, and she doesn't know much about the magic system or what is exactly going on in that kingdom in the sky, because she just hasn't been exposed to it because her mother and her grandfather aren't on good terms. And so once she gets there, her grandfather essentially lets her know that she isn't running to be an heir. So she just has a lot riding on her shoulders, and this book basically follows her going around this kingdom and figuring out what exactly is going on and how she's going to become an heir. And what she figures out is that this kingdom basically has 3 gods, and they're enslaved. And she gets really close to the gods, especially one particularly, which is named Naha, and he's the god of darkness. And so we get a kind of Alina x Darkling thing going on there, and I love the sexual tension between these two characters, and I just love the aspect of the gods. And so I definitely wanted to go ahead and read The Broken Kingdoms, which follows, I think, another god and just like the history of this world. Like, there's a lot of history behind these gods and their existence and how they interact within the society of her grandfather's empire. So I think this just continues on, but I know it doesn't follow our two characters, Yenny and Naha, from this book, and a lot of people were disappointed with that. But because I like the history so much and I thought it was so rich, I think that I will end up liking this. Going along with kind of that gods theme, I also bought The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. Rick Riordan is just, in my eyes and my experience, he was my introduction to gods and mythology and stuff like that. And so I don't know, I really wanted to go ahead and continue with this series because I also bought the Percy Jackson box set a while back, which I don't know if I ever even showed, but I did buy that. And I bought that because of the reboot or the series that is coming on Disney Plus. And so I just want to go ahead and reread those because those books were my childhood. And I just want to continue with the series because Rick Riordan just has this way of writing about teenagers to make it seem so authentic. He just has a way of connecting his readers to his characters. So I wanted to go ahead and read The Lost Hero because I think these are books that would be timeless. The next one I have is City of Lies by Sam Hawke. This is one that I also don't know that much about, but something about Adult Fantasy Booktube made me buy this book. I think it's about assassins, and there's this guy named Jovan who is supposed to be the person who is in charge of making sure that the chancellor of the society, who is apparently somebody important, doesn't get poisoned. But somehow the chancellor does end up poisoned, and somehow Jovan keeps his job, and now he's in charge of taking care of the heirs. Like, I'm so confused on how this man did not lose his job and how he did not get killed because the chancellor was murdered. But there's probably more to the story once I actually get into it. But adult fantasy synopses, I feel like they're so vague and they all kind of sound the same. And I don't know, is that just me? And I always get those vibes when I read adult fantasy synopses, and once I actually read the book, I feel like I'm able to pitch it better. The next book that I have is YA fantasy, and it is The Silver Serpents by Roshani Chokshi. I really enjoyed The Gilded Wolves when I read it last year. It's another book about a heist and a found family, and I don't know, I haven't gotten the urge to pick it up actually because I haven't been loving YA fantasy. I feel like anytime I give a YA fantasy a chance recently, it's been like 2 stars. It's making me sad because YA fantasy was my whole life. Like literally just last year YA fantasy was my whole life, but I'm growing and progressing, and now I'm just loving adult fantasy and a lot of adult romance as well. But hopefully I'll go to this soon. And because I love the character so much and I'm such a character driven reader, I feel like when I finally get to this one, I won't have that same problem that I've been having with YA fantasy. The next book that I bought was Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, and this is another one that is a prime example of what I've not been loving in YA fantasy recently, unfortunately. But this book follows a girl named Emilia, and we start off with her twin sister Victoria being killed. She walks in on the scene and just sees a demon over her, licking up her blood, and from there she is on a mission to figure out what the hell happened to her sister and what is going on. Her and her sister are both witches, and so there's a lot of history behind that and magic around witches and things like that. And she basically summons a demon to help her figure out what's going on, and she summons the demon Wrath. Out of these 7 deadly sins, she gets Wrath, and from there they team up to figure out what's going on with her sister, because Wrath also has a vested interest to figure out what is going on. And I thought this one would be really good just because I hear that the romance was supposed to be really stunning, and I think the idea of itself is really stunning, especially making those 7 deadly sins demons and people and bringing them into the fantasy world. Like A+ on that idea. But for some reason there's something about Carrie Maniscalco's writing that I never connect with. I didn't love Stalking Jack the Ripper. There's something about her, like she can write banter. I'm not gonna do my good sis dirty and say she can't write some banter, because she be writing her ass off when it comes to the banter, but everything else a bit lackluster for me. Next book that I have is A Secret History by Donna Tartt. My friend Delaney from Eternal TBR gave me this book. It's the book of the month version, and it's the only hardcover of The Secret History that deserves rights in my opinion, but that's just me. This is like basically the blueprint for dark academia. Whenever you mention dark academia, you're gonna hear about The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I don't know much about it other than that it's about a lot of white students that go to this prestigious college, which I eat up. There's something about a privileged character that just, I don't know, I love it. I love a book about rich people who are bored, so they go and do some shit that they don't have no business doing just because they can, because I literally cannot relate. I don't know, I just feel like prestigious privileged white college students in the book setting, not coming for nobody, in a book setting, it's just so interesting, and there's so much drama and tea, and I'm a girly who eats up that drama and tea. Next book that I have is a gift from Carly Reads. I'll link her channel down below and up here if I can put it up here, and it's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is one that we're supposed to buddy read together. I don't know when we'll get to it. I feel like we've both just been in slumps, but hopefully we'll read it together soon. And this book is basically about this girl who died, and everyone believes like she was murdered by her boyfriend, but there's essentially more to the story. I've heard pretty decent things about it, and I think the cover is stunning. Next book that I have kind of makes me want to cry when I look at it, because the series breaks my heart. Pierce Brown holds no punches. So it is Dark Age by Pierce Brown. I absolutely love this cover. A lot of people don't like this gold cover, but that gold color is stunning to me, especially with the snake. The YA snake definitely deserves rights on this cover. But this is the second book in the continuation series of the Red Rising series, which is a series that I absolutely adore. The characters have such a fond place in my heart. I think Pierce Brown is amazing at writing characters, character interactions, political schemes. Like, he is just a god in my opinion. He's just so amazing at writing. And Red Rising is basically a story about this guy named Darrow, and he's a red, and he lives in a society that also has a caste system, and at the bottom of the caste system are the reds, and at the top are the golds. And the reds have been told their whole entire lives that they're terraforming Mars to get it ready for everyone else to come over from Earth, and essentially a lot of things happen that reveal that that is not the truth. The reds have just been on the bottom, basically slaves in the society, while everyone else is living on top of Mars, and they've been there for like millennia basically. And something tragic happens to Darrow that leads to him joining a rebel group, and from there they literally take him apart as a red and build him back up as a gold, and he's thrown into the gold society in order to infiltrate, and it is so good. The next book that I have is one that I'm super excited to show you guys. You've already heard me talk about it, but it's A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This year was my first year reading anything by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this girlie, she blew me away. This is the second book in the From Blood and Ash series. I still don't own the first book physically. I just bought this one physically, and this series is literally everything to me. It is the epitome of new adult fantasy. Is the perfect mix of romance and fantasy, and it's so steamy, but we also get those political schemes and stuff like that. So I'll describe from Blood and Ash because I obviously can't describe this one because it's the second book in the series, and a lot is packed into these little thick books, you hear me? So the first book is about a girl named Poppy, who is a maiden, who is essentially just like the purest being in the society that she lives in, and she's not allowed to do certain things. She's not allowed to talk to certain people. She's not allowed to have sex. Like, she is just supposed to stay pure and be this figurehead. So a certain night she goes out and kind of explores, and one night when she's doing that, she finds this guy named Hawk, and from there they have a whole bunch of interactions, and he ends up being in her inner circle in a way. I don't want to describe how because I don't want to spoil anything, but they end up having a lot of connections because of some circumstances. And from there, there's also things that are going on in the palace that she lives in that are really weird. Like, people are showing up dead with bite marks in their neck. They're kind of like a vampire, and they don't know what's going on there. And the lower people in society are becoming dissenters. They're going against the higher ups and everything that Poppy stands for, because apparently there's some lies going around. So we get this steamy relationship between Hawk and Poppy, but we also get a lot of political intrigue, and it's just so good. The next book that I have is The Traitor Queen by Danielle L. Jensen. This is the second book to The Bridge Kingdom, which I talk about all the time. I know y'all are sick and tired of hearing me talk about that book, but I stand by the fact that book 2 pays it dust. The first book follows this girl named Laura, and she is supposed to get married to this guy named Aaron, who is a part of her enemy's society, and she's getting married to essentially be a spy and an assassin. Like, she's going to take down their society from the inside out. The next book that I also have read, and it's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This book follows a girl named Addie. I'm pretty sure everyone knows the synopsis, but I'm gonna give you a quick one. It follows a girl named Addie. She essentially makes a deal with the devil, and she makes a deal to live forever in order to get out of these common roles that she's supposed to play in society. Like, she doesn't want to be a housewife and a mother, and so to get rid of this and to be free, she makes a deal with essentially the devil, which he's never really referred to as the devil. He's more of like a dark god. He comes out at night. She makes a deal with him to live forever, and the caveat to that deal is that no one remembers her, except one day she enters this bookstore and she comes back the next day, and the bookstore owner remembers her. And from there, we're trying to figure out why he can remember her, but we're also following Addie's life. There's a past and present. Next book I have, I have the first book, but it's downstairs, so I'll just talk about this one and it. Pretend it's here, put it here maybe. But I have The Fires of Vengeance and the Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, and this is a revenge fantasy, and I freaking love revenge stories. Red Rising is the revenge story, so I want to read another book about a character like that. This one is an African inspired fantasy, I'm pretty sure. It follows a guy named Tao, and he's a warrior, and his dad is a well-respected warrior as well, and he has these expectations to go into war and fight for his people, except Tao doesn't really want to do that. He has this plan to get injured so he can go back and just live with his loved ones and do his own thing. He doesn't want to be a warrior, except before he can kind of get through these plans, something tragic happens to him that makes him feel like he needs to be the best warrior to get revenge on the people who did him wrong. And I have read like 150 pages of the first book, and it is really good so far, and it's one that I'm really looking forward to. So I'm glad that Orbit Books sent me this book so that I can read them back to back, because I can see this being one of my favorite books. Okay, y'all, I'm down to my last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one that I have that I'm just going to pick up, I'm also kind of in the middle of this one. I'm like 110 pages in. It's another one. I kind of got in a fantasy slump. So when I read The Rage of Dragons and To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, I put them down because, I don't know, I just was in a slump with sci-fi and fantasy. So this book is about a girl named Kira, and she's a part of this space team that goes out and kind of explores uncolonized planets. And while she's doing this, one day she finds this artifact that kind of flips the world upside down. She passes out, wakes up on the ship, and everything is out of order. And what essentially happens is an alien being has taken over her body and other people's bodies from that artifact. I don't know exactly how, we don't know what's going on, but that alien being is basically just ruining ships and shit now. Like, it's tearing shit up. The next two I have are 2 new adult fantasy, I think. I'm trying to get to more new adult fantasy so I can make a video and recommend you guys some. But the first one that I have is Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. So this book follows a girl who has committed murder, and she's put on death row. Except both fortunately and unfortunately, the Queen's poison tester dies when this girl is put on death row, and the rules in the society is that if the poison tester dies, then the next person who is supposed to be executed can become the poison tester of the queen. And that's what happens to this girl, but I don't know what happens after that. I don't know how this is romance. I don't know anything else, but hopefully we'll find out together on this channel. Next one I have is Stolen Songbird by Danielle L. Jensen, the same author as The Bridge Kingdom. And this synopsis is weird, I'm not gonna lie. It reminds me of Frozen for some reason, because there's some type of trolls, and these trolls kidnap this girl, and the trolls want revenge on this girl's society, except while she's living with the trolls, she finds out there's lies. Like, come on, say it with me. Lies. Like, apparently that's all fantasy has to give, a whole bunch of lies and deceit. But yeah, there's lies, and she's like not sure about her kingdom anymore, and then she goes back to the kingdom, I guess. There's some type of rebellion. I don't know, this synopsis is all over the place, and it's not really my fault because that's what this girl wrote. So the next book that I have is another adult fantasy. It is by Brent Weeks. It's called The Black Prism. This is another one that's really well loved by the adult fantasy booktube community. So of course I had to pick it up because I feel like this one is kind of a classic in the adult fantasy booktube community. So this book follows this guy named Gavin, who is an emperor of the society, and he has all the power. He's the most powerful being in the society, except he only has 5 years to live, and he has 5 important goals that he needs to accomplished during those 5 years. And also he comes to find out that he has a son somewhere, and so he is trying to figure out what to do with his son and a lot of things that go along with that. And that's pretty much all that I know. The last book that I have, I think I'm glad that I'm ending on this book because it's a pretty cover. It's a series that I think I'll love. I had recently just started the first book, and so I feel like I'm just ending with a bang, a little bang. And the last book that I have is The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. I'm super excited for this book. I decided to go ahead and buy the sequel because I really do think that it'll be a series that I absolutely adore, and so I decided to just get it so I can finish them all together, and I think they will look really good on my shelf right behind me. The Poppy War, this one, and then this one. I don't know, I'm super excited. I'm glad that the series has finally come to an end so I can binge them, and I'm super excited because R.F. Kuang is working on a Dark Academia book, and I know my good sis is going to tear that book up. She's going to put her foot in that book. So let me go ahead and get used to her writing in these so I can go ahead and be the first person to purchase her Dark Academia. So those are all the books that I bought in the fall and the autumnal months. I want a cute blue emoji. I don't want just a blue heart. I want to be different. Eee! Please, please, please leave a dolphin or whale emoji because I just discovered that emoji and it's the cutest thing that I've ever seen. So leave that down in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and all those things down below. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!